front, talks to Caulfield, fires, score!
What's going on, gang? Another game under their belts, another loss for the Montreal Canadiens. A 3-2 defeat at the hands of the original six rival Boston Bruins. I think a better game for Montreal. I thought they played okay, believe it or not. I don't think everything was as terrible as everything looked in the game against the Stars, but I think tonight they certainly showed up. The big point of debate tonight, I think, is going to be about the power play, and it's probably what Montreal Canadiens fans are going to talk about for the next number of days. What's going on with the Canadiens power play, and everyone's going to have their own opinion about how to fix it, how to do this and how to do that, and certainly that will be, I guess, valid to a certain degree. Because the Canadiens power play certainly let them down tonight. They had opportunities to win this game. They had 2 5-on-3 power plays, and they were not able to convert. They had a number of other power plays. Overall, they were 0 for... Let's see what they were. 0 for something. Why do I not have the... There it is here. They were 0 for 7 on the power play tonight. So that definitely is not acceptable. It's not what you would expect from the team based on the personnel that they have playing on their power play. You would expect that to be a strength of the team, and it certainly hasn't been. I think they're 0 for their last 14 or 15 now, and that's not ideal. So welcome to another episode of Habs After Dark. My name is Devin. This is Recliner Sports. We're going to talk about the game. We'll go over the scoreboard. We'll go over the A team. I certainly would invite you all to post your comments in the comment section. I would much rather have a conversation with you guys than just sit here and talk at you guys about the game. I know we tend to have fewer viewers after a loss than we do after a win, and that's unfortunate. But again, I think there's a lot to talk about here about the Canadiens, and I would like to do that. If you're interested, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, if you're watching in a replay or if you're watching live, then you can hit the button down below, and you can subscribe to the channel. You can hit the notification bell. If you are enjoying the content, give us a thumbs up. Si vous voulez joindre à nous, vous pouvez pousser sur le bouton en bas. C'est une émission bilingue, alors on invite les questions et les commentaires aussi en anglais, aussi en français. C'est une émission où tout le monde est bienvenu. Alors, c'est certain qu'on aime beaucoup parler en français aussi. Et le Canadien, c'est une équipe bilingue. C'est une équipe qui appartient aussi aux partisans francophones, tandis que les partisans anglophones. Alors, je suis ici pour vous parler en les deux langues. Alors, si vous avez des questions, des commentaires en français, j'aimerais bien les voir et j'aimerais bien l'opportunité de les répondre. Yes, French and English, guys. Either way, we're happy to respond. It's a bilingual show, and the Canadiens are a team with bilingual fans, and I'm happy to respond in either language. Salut, Entertap. What is up? Tough game tonight, I think. I think the Canadiens, outside of their power play, I think the Canadiens did okay tonight. I think there was a lot of positives out of the game tonight. I think there were things that we can look positively on after the game. I think they've rebounded to a certain degree from the 7-0 thumping at the hands of the Dallas Stars. They were, again, it's a really weird thing to say that they didn't play terribly in a 7-0 loss to Dallas, but they really didn't play terribly in that loss. But I thought tonight they certainly did decent, played decently, and certainly had an opportunity to win right up until the very final minutes of the game where they were trying to tie things up. I thought that the team showed some heart. I liked the way that Jayden Struble, did what he did at the beginning of the game. I know a lot of people say that they don't like staged fights, but that was a staged fight with a purpose. Jayden Struble taking on a much bigger opponent, and a veteran guy in Nikita Zadorov showed a lot of guts, and I think it sent a message to his teammates that they were that he at least was ready to play, and maybe tried to inject a little bit of energy into the team. I didn't love the Jack-Eye fight, not because he lost the fight, but more so because of the timing of it all. The Canadiens had just made a number of big hits. The momentum was certainly in their favor. There was some energy. The crowd was going, and there was a hit from Anderson. There was a hit from Gallagher. There was a hit from Bolduc, I believe. There were like 3 or 4 big hits in a row, and I think that it would have been a wiser move by Jack-Eye to just sort of skate away from that fight with Jeannot. Not because I feel like Jeannot is too tough of an opponent for him, and maybe he was thinking that he could win that fight and give the team even more energy. But I think at that point you've got the momentum moving in your favor, and you certainly, if with a little bit of intelligence and a little bit of wisdom, you might have been able to sort of work that into maybe a penalty against Jeannot, right? The way that Anderson did later in the period when I think it was Kastelik that tried to fight him, and Anderson kind of just was like, whatever, bud, like I'm gonna take this penalty, like, you know what I mean? So again, I've been a big proponent of I love Jack-Eye's game, and I think he played a good game again. I mean, this is 4 or 5 really good games in a row for Jack-Eye, but I think that he has a chance to really evolve his role on the team as the the quote unquote enforcer, and be a little bit smarter about it. And in that particular scenario, the idea of fighting with intention and purpose, as opposed to fighting out of emotion, right? You're not just fighting because you're pissed off or because a guy asks you to fight. You're fighting because, or not fighting because it benefits the team for you to make that decision. And I think at that stage of the game, it would have helped the team for him to not necessarily fight and keep that momentum going. If for no other reason, just to stop the play, not to stop the play from continuing, right? The play was definitely moving in the Canadiens' favor. Again, like I said, the 3 or 4 hits on that shift, there was some energy going at that point. And, I think, he also could have, perhaps with a little bit of, cunning or wisdom or whatever you want to call it, might have been able to sort of extract a penalty out of Tanner Jeannot on that play. So that's, that was kind of my thought on it. Entertap says, better game than the last couple, some positives take away, but a loss is a loss. Yes, 100%. Loss is a loss. I think the power play, again, is going to be the talking point, obviously. The power play is going to be the talking point, but, I think, it certainly, it's not a continuation of what we've seen in the last 2 games. I think there's definitely, things that, there's a lot of positives that come out of that game. Monty let in a couple of bad goals, but I don't think he played a bad game tonight. I thought he looked out of position badly on the first goal. The second goal, it's a deflection, but again, he didn't react very well to the deflection, right? It wasn't like the deflection happened 3 feet in front of him. It happened, 40, 50 feet in front of him, and he still, didn't react very well to it. I want to address this as well. It's tough if you're challenged. Well, it's not tough if you're challenged. I mean, in fact, it's, often easier if you're challenged, right? Because it gives you the opportunity, if you can keep your head the way Anderson did, later in that same period, I believe. If you can keep your head, you can use your intelligence and your experience to, again, if you're emotional and you're caught up in it all, yeah, your guy challenges you to a fight, you're going to fight. But if you're under control and your emotions are under control, that's a scenario where you can really, use that to your advantage, right? And I think that's kind of what Jack-Eye needs to bring into his game, especially in that aspect of his game, is the idea that he doesn't have to be, he doesn't have to worry about his reputation or playing with that that, again, if you're above it all a little bit and you can control your emotions, you can be a much better enforcer, if that makes sense, right? You don't have to fight at every opportunity. You don't have to fight just because a guy challenges you. You don't have to fight because you're pissed off. You don't even have to fight because some guy just took a run at your best player, right? You can hold on to that, and you can get that guy back later. And a lot of the enforcer role, could be more of a preemptive thing too, where you're setting the tone early on, as opposed to waiting to be reactionary to something that the other team has done. I think that Xhekaj really has an opportunity to. Again, I use the word revolutionize. It's probably I overuse it, but again, to really take advantage of that role that he has, that he plays, and to use that to the Canadiens' advantage. Really, no-win situation. He's done that before, pointing at the scoreboard, and he was criticized. Now he fights, and he's criticized. Lots of mixed messages. Well, there's a difference between turning down the fight and pointing at the scoreboard, right? You can just skate away. Like I said, you could also try and work that into trying to draw a penalty out of the opposing player. Again, pointing to the way Anderson's been around a little bit longer. He knows what he's doing a little bit better. He's got more experience. He's a little bit more of a wily veteran. I agree with you. It's a mixed message, but there's a big difference between making a big show of pointing at the scoreboard and just skating away from, the way that play worked is that Jeannot went in there to hit Xhekaj because 3 of his teammates had just been hit, in consecutive plays on the same shift. And so he was out there trying to sort of shift the momentum in favor of his team. So he went in and took a bit of a run at Xhekaj, and he kind of bounced off Xhekaj. And rather than, letting that go and saying, okay, well, you just bounced off me, you look like a fool. And, now you've even created more, more energy, towards our team. He decided that he took that opportunity for a fight. And again, I get it. If he'd won that fight, then, even more energy and more, momentum sort of flows towards the Canadiens. But again, I think that sometimes you need to, if you want to play that role as effectively as you possibly can, you need to take some of the emotion out of it and be more purposeful and have more intention behind your decision making. The only dumb thing was fighting at the end of the shift. Score was tied at the time, if I recall. Yeah, I don't remember where it was exactly in the shift. But again, I just think that shift was a real momentum booster for the Canadiens. They had a number of big hits, and things were going their way. And like I said, even if it was just a matter of the fact that the fight ended that shift and ended that sort of that rolling momentum that the Canadiens had built, I didn't think it was a great idea for him to take that fight at that point. And I think he took that fight more out of an emotional response to Jeannot taking a bit of a run at him, when if he had been more so thinking about what was best for the team, he might have made a different decision. Again, I'm not criticizing the guy. I love Arber Xhekaj. I've been on his side for a long time. I thought he had a really good game again tonight. Otherwise, for the 4th or 5th game in a row, I thought he was pretty good. Everything was pretty positive for him. His numbers, his advanced numbers, again, he's at like 65% expected goals for percentage. Everything else was pretty positive for him. He moved the puck well. He looked pretty poised, in control with the puck. He wasn't sort of, he can get a little bit panicky when he's not playing well, where he's, making, bad decisions on breakouts and whatever. But again, that's just a decision that I didn't love, and that's something that I think if he could get a handle on that part of his game and start to be a guy who uses his body and uses his physicality and his fighting and whatever with more purpose and intention as opposed to being emotional about it, I think he really has an opportunity to be a special player when he can use those talents and those skills to the team's advantage, or to the most effective way towards the team's advantage. So just my thoughts. I know not everyone's not going to agree with me on that. I know there's a lot of old school attitudes about that, but I think the game has changed sufficiently that the role of the enforcer is a lot different, right? And it's not necessarily about jumping on top of guys every time they do something that you don't like. Sometimes it's about being more calculated, and sometimes you can get a guy back later on in a more opportune time, or you can you can send a message before they take a run at your guy, right? Let them know that it's not a good idea, because if you do, you're going to get it, right? Like the Jaden Struble getting back at Dylan Cousins, or not Dylan Cousins. Was it Dylan Cousins? No, the other Cousins. Nick Cousins. Situation is a perfect example, right? Nick Cousins, takes a run at Demidov, hacks at him with his stick. Was it Demidov or Hudson? I know they took runs at both of them at one point during that preseason game. But, the fact that they got him later on almost had more impact and more effect than it would have if they had jumped on his back, at the time, Cedric Perret style, right? So, anyways, A-team, Struble, Matheson, Anderson, Evans. Struble, Matheson, Anderson, Evans. I think you and I are not in great agreement, Entertap, so stick around and you'll see who my choices are, and we can have a conversation about it. Here's your scoreboard for tonight, guys. Again, 3-2 win for the Boston Bruins. They opened the scoring at 8:38 on a goal by Husnudinov. I don't know if I say that right. Husnudinov, assisted by Pasternak and Zadorov. The Canadiens come back with a shorthanded goal from Jake Evans from Josh Anderson. Second period, Mason Lohrei scores from Kastelik and Jeannot. And then Arvidsson scores from Zacha and Pasternak. The Bruins are up 3-1 at that point. The Canadiens make it a little bit closer on a goal from Cole Caulfield, from Suzuki and Struble at 16:51. So the Canadiens head into the third period ahead in shots, but down by a goal. And they have an opportunity to win it in the third period. But unfortunately, the Bruins are able to just sort of shut things down on them. Again, playing a good road game, just shutting down the Canadiens in that third period. The Canadiens were sort of held to not very many scoring opportunities in that period. I want to see what the shots were in the third period. And it's going to take me a second to get there. The shots in the third period were 9-6 in favor of the Canadiens. So the Canadiens did get some shots in that period. Their scoring opportunities were, what were they in that third period? Let's just see. The Corsi was 31-18 in the third. The Canadiens did get some chances, but again, Jeremy Swayman, I thought, played a good game tonight as well and shut things down. So the third period, there was no scoring, and the Canadiens were not able to tie the game up, even though they were down just by a goal. They did get some good opportunities, especially late in the game, but they just couldn't pull it off. I'll get back to the advanced stats there in a second. Don't disagree with you, Devin, just saying that I feel Arbor is struggling knowing what and when to do things, including fighting, because of different messaging received from coaches. I don't know anything about the messaging he's getting from the coaches. I do agree with you that he struggles because, I don't think he is the highest hockey IQ guy in the world, and I think the more that's going on in his head, I think does affect him. What I'm trying to say is that with more experience, and if he, sits down with somebody who, can communicate this to him, I think he has an opportunity to be more effective if he can play the enforcer role with a little bit more thoughtfulness, right? So right now he's playing the enforcer role because he's the biggest, strongest guy on the ice on most nights. And so, he feels pretty confident that if anybody wants to fight him, he's going to win that fight. He can win fights against, just about anybody in the league. And he's approaching it in that way, and that it's his job to be the guy who goes out there and does those things. What I'm saying is that if he pays a little bit more thought to it and gives a little more thought to it and treats the role a little bit differently in the sense that, he sets the tone beforehand with his actions, whether it's hits or even just like talking to guys and getting the word out there that don't mess around with my guys or I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And then he handles the business with more purpose and intent than emotion, that I think he can be more effective player for the Montreal Canadiens, right? He can be more effective in that role if he treats it that way, as opposed to just going out there and reacting to things that happen on the ice out of emotion and jumping on top of guys or wrestling guys to the ground. Like, he can still do that stuff where he grabs two guys out of a scrum and pulls them both out. I think that is a good thing, right? That sends a message, right? That preemptively sends a message to the other team not to mess around. I'm the biggest guy on the ice, and I'm the biggest, baddest guy here. And if you want to be acting out the wrong way, you're eventually going to get it. But I don't know that you have to always be acting out of emotion. And I get that he may be getting mixed messages. I don't know what messages the coaching staff is giving him. But I think that if you could sit him down with the right person who could communicate this message that I'm trying to communicate. Sorry, I just banged my computer. I think he's a guy who could figure that out. And again, it's tough. He's 22 years old now, right? You're on the ice. You're still young and you're full of, piss and vinegar and whatever. But I think that if he can get that handled or under control, and become I'm not expressing it as well. I'm definitely not expressing it as well as I would like to, but if he could get that under control and get a handle on that, and be like Brad Marchand's a good example, right? So Brad Marchand, obviously a little bit different role, very different, well, a little bit different role than what Arbor Xhekaj plays, like the pest role, right? If you play the pest role out of emotion, where you're licking guys' faces and you're doing things emotionally because you're caught up in the game, that's one thing, right? That's one thing, and that can be effective to a certain degree. But when you get to the point where you're doing that pest stuff, where you're being a step ahead mentally than the other guys on the ice, and you're forcing them into penalties, and you're forcing them into retaliation, and you're forcing them into doing the things that help your team, that's when you take that role to another level. And I think there's room for that to happen with the enforcer as well, where you play that role less out of emotion and more out of an intent, right? Your role as an enforcer is designed to help your team to the maximum amount, as opposed to just going out there and sort of playing it by ear and responding to everything that happens on the ice. "73 shot attempts tonight, Luciano. 10 more than the Boston Bruins. If you're over on TikTok, join us on YouTube. We're doing a live show on YouTube. We'd love to have you join us over here. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. It took Marchand many years to outgrow all of that. I'm 100% behind you, which is why I'm saying now it would be nice if he would figure that out sooner rather than later. Like, I'd rather him learn that now than wait all that time, right? And again, I think it's like a situation where if he had the right guy, the right mentor to teach him that, that it could be more effective, right? The Canadiens are, one of the things the Canadiens are trying to do in this rebuild is they're trying to get their players to play a veteran game of hockey when they're 23, 24, 25 years old, as opposed to when they're 28, 29, 30, 31 years old. Hey, Luciano, what's going on? Welcome to the show. If you're not yet subscribed, Luciano, you can do so by hitting the button down below. Frank says, I thought Montreal played a pretty good game and outshot the Boston Bruins and should deserve a win. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, Frank. I think you're probably right for the most part. I mean, I think other than the power play, I think, a lot of people will point to the power play and say if you go 0 for 7 on the power play and don't score on 2 5-on-3s, you're probably not deserving of the win. Okay, you're come over from TikTok. Nice. Well, thank you for coming over, Luciano. Like I said, if you want to subscribe to the channel over here on YouTube, you can do that by hitting the button down below. If you're enjoying the content, guys, also give us a thumbs up. That certainly helps as well. What's up, Owen? How are you? Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, I would say yeah. I mean, I think you could say that the Canadiens deserved a better result tonight. But again, the power play, when you get that many opportunities and you don't take advantage of them, it's tough. And you can point to Jeremy Swayman and say he held the fort for the Bruins, and to an extent he did. But I don't know if you guys listened to the Basu and Gaudin notebook, but Marc-Antoine Gaudin made a point that actually was relevant to tonight's game during the latest episode, where he said that usually or often when you see a team not score on a 5-on-3, they don't win the game. And, his rationale was that, and I think it's a sound one, was that, if you're not scoring on a 5-on-3, it's a pretty good indication that you're not playing well enough to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you, right? Because that is a major opportunity when you get given a 5-on-3. And, if you're not able to take advantage of the 5-on-3, it's a pretty sure sign that you're not going to take advantage of the other opportunities that are presented to you during the game. And if you don't take advantage of your opportunities, chances are you're not going to win. Luciano is super annoyed at the power play. Too many passes around and no one wants to take responsibility. Yeah, I think for me the bigger issue is the lack of movement from power play unit 1. I think that they were standing around a little bit too much. Even power play 2, you saw that there was more movement. I mean, obviously they're moving the puck quite well with the passing, but they're being kept to the outside, and they're just not moving their feet enough and creating enough chaos. This is something they were doing a lot more earlier on when they first put this unit together. Again, I would point to. Everyone seems to think that the idea of putting Demidov on PP1 was going to be the be-all and end-all, and it was for a while. But again, I remind everybody that when the Canadiens moved Lane Hutson to the first power play unit last year, I'm not going to suggest that power play 1 didn't get better. It certainly did, but the power play percentage for the Montreal Canadiens was lower after Lane Hutson was moved to power play 1 than it was before he was moved to power play 1. The power play is systematically structured wrong for this group, in my opinion. No presence in front of net, no real bumper shooter, and defense is not shooting on net to create rebounds. Okay, I agree with some of that. I don't agree with all of it. I don't know that I would agree that there's no net front presence. I think there's a little bit of one. Again, I don't this was something that was brought up during the TikTok live that I did during the game as well. I think that in today's NHL, you don't necessarily have a guy who just plants himself in front of the net like you would have, 20, 25 years ago. I think you kind of flash to the front of the net a little bit, and, Slavkovsky playing that role does that, but he also has responsibility to retrieve pucks along the boards and work behind the goal as well. I agree with you with the no real bumper shooter. They don't do a very good job. They have a bumper shooter. I think, Suzuki is in that role for the most part on PP1, and I think Bolduc is in that role on PP2. They're both very capable shooters, and they're very good at getting their shot away quickly. They're just not real good at getting the puck to them. And tonight, they tried on a few occasions. I know there was one shot Bolduc had where it was saved. There was one shot where Caulfield was in that role and he put the puck over the net. But they do struggle to get the puck to the bumper. So yeah, I don't know that I agree that they should be shooting from the point more. I shouldn't say that. I do think they should be shooting from the point more, but I don't think it should necessarily be a scenario where they're trying to create rebounds. I think it should be more, if they can make that pass across the Royal Road and get the goalie to move across. I think they've got two guys who can take. I don't think that Hudson has the heaviest shot in the world, but he can get it away pretty quickly. And if Dobson's out there, he can get the shot away pretty quickly as well. So I think they need to. I don't think they need every shot to come from the hash marks or lower. I think they can take some shots from a little bit higher up if they set them up properly. Frank would like to see more of the defenseman on the power play take slap shots from the point. Dobson has a good slap shot, I hear, but haven't seen him use it yet. Yeah, he does have a good slap shot. He's used it from time to time. I mean, we saw him use it tonight. Unfortunately, it ended up hitting Charlie McAvoy in the face. But yeah, I don't know about shots from the point necessarily. I don't think you want your defenseman on the power play to be shooting from the blue line. I think you would rather have them, sort of be at or just inside the top of the circle area. But I agree. Like if you can get, scenarios where you get a cross ice pass that, forces the goalie to change his angle and you can get that shot away quickly, I think there is, there is opportunities for the defenseman to take more shots. Another hot take. Okay, Luciano, Gallagher's time is done. He can't skate or make or move. Yeah, I disagree. I mean, I think that's an emotional opinion, emotional response. Again, tonight, what was Gallagher? I don't think Gallagher had a great game tonight, but again, I think people would have said he was done a couple years ago, and then he went out and scored 21 goals last year. Tonight Gallagher was an 89.48 expected goals for percentage. So I don't think your career is ever going to be over when you're capable of putting up a close to 90% expected goals for percentage in the NHL. He did only play 12 and a half minutes, which is probably closer to the amount of time you would like Gallagher to play. I think he's probably been playing a little bit too much. I would love to see the Canadiens, stick with the Evans, Gallagher, Anderson line. I think that line works well together. They worked well together last year. I think they should just leave that line together and let them play 12 to 14 minutes a game, and that's it. Let them, let Anderson and Evans kill penalties. I think that Gallagher's body is in tough shape after a number of injuries. But I don't know. I don't agree that Gallagher obviously is very valuable to the team in a number of ways. That being one of them. Hudson can't shoot from the point. Disagree, Luciano. I think he showed tonight that he took a couple of nice shots from the point. He's been working on his shot. He doesn't have the heaviest shot in the world, like I said, but he's smart about his shot, and he'll work on it. So I think that tonight he demonstrated that he does have again, not the heaviest shot in the world, and he's not going to put it in there at 150 kilometers an hour, but he gets his shot away relatively well, and he's smart about it. He's smart about where he puts his shot. So I don't agree with the sort of the bold or the bald statement that he just can't shoot from the point. He does. He is shooting a little bit more. He does shoot more than he did. But again, I think he wants to feel comfortable and confident that he's helping the team when he does that. I just want the old Gallagher back in front of the net causing trouble. I don't want him to skate around because he's a bit too slow. Yeah, I mean you're not going to get the old Gallagher because the old Gallagher doesn't exist anymore. Like Gallagher has had both of his hands mangled by slap shots. And he's broken an ankle, and so like he's going to be slower. He's going to play a different game. But again, last year I think he more than demonstrated his value to this team. He was able to get 21 goals. I think it was he finished with last year. But yeah, I mean, I would, like I said, love to see him play 12 to 14 minutes a game and be partnered up with Evans and Anderson. I think personally that the Canadiens should leave the first line and the fourth line alone. Evans, Anderson, Gallagher, fourth line, don't mess with them. Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky, first line, don't mess with them. That's my opinion. Let's get back to the scoreboard here real quickly, guys. We'll just deal with some of the advanced stats. Again, we'll see the Canadiens probably, the advanced stats probably look a little better for the Canadiens than they were, and I think a lot of this is on the back of the power plays that the Canadiens had. They had more shot attempts with the Corsi 73 to 63. The shots themselves 30 to 22. Was it 30 to 22? I don't think it was 30 to 22, was it? 28 to 23, I think, is actually what the final was. So I think they might have adjusted it after I wrote these down or marked these down. The hits were 27 to 27. So this concept or this idea that the Canadiens are too small or too soft or whatever. Again, they played against not a much bigger team, but a more, a team that's more known for its physical play, and they more than held their own with the hits. The face-off circle was again a problem tonight for the Canadiens, 33 to 23, favoring the Bruins. High danger chances favored the Canadiens, 16 to 11, and the expected goals were 4.8 to 5.5. Demonstrating again, I think that the goalies probably did a pretty good job of keeping their respective teams in the game tonight. So both goalies would, be positive on the expected goals above, or the expected goals above average. So let me see what we got here. Expected goals. Yeah, so Montembeault's expected goals against were 3.36 tonight, and he allowed 3.09. So there you go, right? So he saved more goals than expected tonight by a small margin, but that's certainly an improvement. So again, I think the expected or the advanced numbers, look better for the Canadiens than perhaps they actually played. I think a lot of that is attributable to the power play, but yeah, those stats are what they are. Frank says, I think if Montreal keeps up with their pace and use their speed, they'll get out of this losing streak. Yeah, I don't know that there's any major. I think they probably need to work on their power play and get that sorted out a little bit. But I think, Marty St. Louis continually talks about, we just need to keep playing our system. And I think that'll work. Obviously, the loss of Newhook and the lengthier loss of Goulet won't help. I didn't really get a good sense of Jared Davidson tonight. His numbers were okay, but he only played 7 minutes. So I didn't get a real good feel for, how he's going to, Jared Davidson isn't just called up for a game or two. We're talking about Newhook being out until February. So, Enter tap. Let's see what you got here. I'm confused with advanced stats. I'm looking at natural stat trick, and it doesn't seem to coincide. Well, I think what you're probably dealing with, enter tap, is you're probably looking at 5-on-5 versus all scenarios. My stats that I have are in all scenarios and not just 5-on-5. So up in the top left-hand corner of most of their graphics, or most of their tables, you'll see an indication for all even strength, 5 versus 5, 5 versus 5 SVA, 5 versus 4 PP, 4 versus 5 PK. So that's why I say that I think these numbers are skewed a little bit, probably by the fact that the Canadiens, had so many power plays tonight. The reason their Corsi, their shot attempts, is so much better is probably because they spent so much time on the power play. So if you go to 5-on-5 tonight, the Canadiens' Corsi is still better, but only 41-35. The high danger chances then goes from 16-11 down to 9-6. And then the expected goals for actually favors the Canadiens, 2.29 to 1.41. All right, let's do the A team, gang. What you've all been waiting for. Enter tap took his run at the A team. I'll go back to it here and see if I can see what he had said. Struble, Matheson, Anderson, and Evans. Anybody else have any thoughts on who? Just by the way, for those of you who are new here, Luciano in particular, I know you're new here. The A team is basically my version of the stars of the game. It's essentially, these are the guys that I think contributed the most to the Canadiens' performance or played the best for the Canadiens on the particular night. Instead of picking 3, I pick 4, being that it's the A team, the 4 members of the A team, Murdoch, BA, Face, and Hannibal. I don't know if you're a fan of the 1980s television show or if you're even old enough to remember it, but yeah, that's why we pick 4. So here is tonight's A team. Randy has Anderson, Evans, Davidson, and Struble. So for me tonight, guys, I have Doc, Struble, Demidov, and Caulfield, which seems to be a little bit out of sync with what some of you guys have. Struble, I just thought, again, what he did at the beginning of the game, I thought was really gutsy. His effort to set the tone for the team early on. Plus, I thought he played a pretty solid game. His expected goals for tonight was 68%, very solid. He and Jack-I both had good games tonight, I thought. Jack-I has played well probably the last 5 or 6 games. It's a good thing, I guess, because that they're both playing well, because it doesn't look like Gooley's going to be back anytime soon. So, but I did like Struble's game. I thought he was physical, throwing his body around. He definitely looked really, really solid out there tonight. Cole Caulfield, perhaps not his best game all around tonight, but the offense was good there tonight, obviously scoring the goal to get the Canadiens within 1 at the end of the second period. Just thought he just was skating around really, really, and I thought he did a good job tonight. Kirby Dach, I know I'm probably still in the minority here. I've been banging the Kirby Dach drum for a while now, even when he was struggling. I know I got in a number of arguments with a bunch of people over Kirby Dach, and I've said all along, like, let's just let Kirby Dach see what he can do and see, how Kirby Dach can, find his game again, and that the team wants to give him an opportunity, and that, he's capable of doing a lot more than he has. And, obviously I've had some shouting matches with a few people. Entertap, I think you were around for at least one of them when I was, in a big argument, I think, with Coach Frenchie over Kirby Dach. But I think Kirby Dach has played very well so far this year. And tonight, does anybody have any idea what Kirby Dach's expected goals for percentage was tonight? So basically, expected goals for percentage is they look at all of the plays that happen when you're on the ice, and they determine how many expected goals your team would have scored while you're on the ice versus how many expected goals the other team would have scored while you're on the ice. Now, I know not everybody loves that stat, but Kirby Dach's expected goals for percentage tonight was 96.3. 96.3. He was on the ice. While he was on the ice, the natural stat trick expected goals algorithm determined that he would have been expected to be on the ice for 1.7 goals for and 0.06 goals against. That's crazy. That's crazy. 96. You don't see 96% expected goals for percentage very often, and he played almost 15 minutes tonight. That's pretty impressive numbers. So for all those people out there that still think that Kirby Dach is a black hole defensively, and that he's playing good hockey. He's playing good hockey. So I have Kirby Dach. I thought Kirby Dach was arguably the Canadiens' best player tonight. I have Ivan Demidov there. I still don't think that Ivan Demidov is quite where he is capable of being. I don't think he's quite where he's capable of being, and I can't wait to see the game where he just breaks out and starts to feel it. But I thought he played well tonight. 53% expected goals for percentage. What is he? 28 shot attempts while he's on the ice, only 12 against. 15 scoring chances for while he's on the ice, only 5 against. So I thought he played a pretty good solid game. So those are my members of the A team. I know it's always harder in a game like that to get some agreement. But those are the guys I would have picked. I don't have any dispute with some of the other names that you've thrown out there. Who did Anderson? I thought had a decent game. Randy Evans as well. Davidson maybe. I mean, Davidson only played 7 minutes. In those 7 minutes, I thought he did well, and I mean maybe he's earned himself a bigger role in the next game. So I don't disagree with you on that. I agree with you completely, Randy, about Newhook. Newhook looked very good so far this year. I think it's not just his puck handling. I think, Newhook took on some more defensive responsibility this year, whether it was on the penalty kill or on 5-on-5, and, had done quite a good job of it, right? He added another element to their penalty kill. He took some of the heat off of Nick Suzuki. Nick Suzuki didn't have to play nearly as often on the penalty kill with Newhook in the lineup. Now he's probably going to have to go back to playing that role. So that's going to sort of add ice time to Nick Suzuki that he really didn't need. I mean, I think, Suzuki is probably better served playing on the power play and not having that extra, 2 or 3 minutes of ice time on the penalty kill. So in that sense, I think those are, the areas where Newhook's going to be really missed. Jack Guy has improved minutes in the last few games. Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier. I think Jack Guy has, played quite well for the last, 4 or 5, maybe even 6 games. Like, he's looked very good. He looks a lot more under control and poised in his own zone. He's making smarter passes. He's, keeping it simple. He's not trying to do too much. I didn't love his decision to fight Jeannot, the timing of it when he did. So I just, in that sense, I'm not going to get into that anymore because we kind of hashed it out already. If you haven't, if you didn't hear it, then I invite you to go and watch it in the replay. But no, Jackie's been more and more like the player that the Canadiens expect him to be, right? The player that they envision him being, which is why they've shown the patience that they have with him and continue to work with him to see him become the player that they believe he's capable of being. And yeah, I'm excited to see it. And I think that there's a role for Arber Xhekaj long term on this team, as a third pairing defenseman. I think there is for Struble as well. I mean, I get that there's a battle between those two guys, and that at the end of the day, you're probably not going to see both of those guys be on the Canadiens long term, but they're making it a battle, which is an interesting one, right? It's an interesting one. I'd much rather have, two guys playing well and you have to choose between them than have two guys who are playing crappy and you have to try and figure out how to, get one of them going. So, but yeah, I think you're right, Randy. Xhekaj has improved. I mean, obviously his minutes have gone up, but I think that's an indication of, how well he's been playing. So tonight he only played, is that 5-on-5 or is that in all scenarios? He only played 10 minutes tonight, which, again, there was a lot of power play time out there and he's not going to get on the ice in the power play. So that would have detracted a little bit from his ice time, but we're also seeing him play some penalty kill time as well, which I think is an interesting development. And, for him being a long-term contributor to this team down the road, his ability to play on the penalty kill is going to be a big part of that. So, yeah, I think Xhekaj is his game is vastly improved. He's looked a lot better. Yeah, I'm impressed with. I mean, Xhekaj's been a guy who I've always thought highly of, and I know the Canadiens have big plans for him and big ideas of what he's capable of becoming. And I think I think this last series or streak of 4 or 5 games have probably been close to as good as he's played. So far in the NHL. I'm trying to see if I can maybe, how does this work? Let's see if I can figure out who did he play mostly with tonight? Line mates. Canadiens line mates. What? Not what I wanted. Get back here. Tonight, Arber Xhekaj. What? Arber Xhekaj was paired mostly with Carrier tonight. So he would have played 6 minutes and 25 with Carrier. He played 1 minute and 24 with Struble. He played 24 seconds with Hudson, 18 seconds with Matheson, and 1 minute and 1 second with Noah Dobson. So you can't even sort of argue while he was, made to look better because he was on the ice with Hudson a lot tonight. So Struble tonight would have gotten, let's see who he played the most with tonight. Yeah, so Struble played 7 minutes of his 10 minutes with Lane Hudson. So what do we think, guys? Is that it for tonight? Any more thoughts? Any more comments? Any more questions? I guess, I'll give you guys a second here to see if you have anything more to chat about. But in the meantime, if you are interested in subscribing to the channel, guys, you can do so by hitting the button down below. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. If you like the content, you like what you're watching, give us a thumbs up. I see there's 7 or 8 of you in the room at the moment, and there's just 2 thumbs up. So that means at least 5 of you haven't hit the thumbs up button just yet. So maybe you don't like what you're seeing, which is fine. But if you do enjoy the content, hit the thumbs up. Give us a like. It does help the algorithm. If you do want to subscribe, that also helps us. We are currently at 472 subscribers. We would like to get to 500, so we need about 28 more. So if you're new here, YouTube tells me that only about 30% of the people who watch the show actually are subscribed. So if you're watching live or in a replay, hit that subscribe button. Si vous regardez l'émission après le fait, vous pouvez pousser sur le bouton en bas. Le YouTube me dit que seulement 30% des personnes qui regardent ou qui écoutent l'émission sont des membres. Alors, le bouton en bas pour devenir membre, vous pouvez pousser sur ce bouton en bas. Thank you very much, Matthew. It's great to see you as well. I hope you have a great night. It's been really nice having you in here. Thanks for your comment and your great contribution to tonight's show. Yeah, so that's like I said, guys. We do a show after every Canadiens game, Habs After Dark. If you do want to partake, certainly pop on by. We will be live on, when is the next game? The next game on Tuesday? Stand by. I will let you know. I'll do a quick out-of-town scoreboard as well, guys, before we shut her down. The next game for the Canadiens is on Monday, November 17th. It's the prime game. So it's an 8:30 start for me, 7:30 for those of you in the Eastern time zone. Then they don't play again till Thursday against the Capitals. And then they play on Saturday against the Leafs. So next game is on Monday versus the Blue Jackets. Out-of-town scoreboards tonight, guys. Jets and Flames are tied at 0 early in the second period. The Kraken and Sharks are tied at 1. Wenberg for the Sharks and Schwartz for the Kraken. And then we have the Lightning and the Panthers. That was earlier today. The Lightning defeated the Panthers 3-1. Lilleberg had the sole goal, Marchand had the sole goal for Florida. Lilleberg, Finley, and Gergensons scored for the Lightning. The Ducks fell to the Wild 2-0. Johansson and Boldy scoring for the Wild. The Kings beat the Senators 1-0. Alex Laferriere with the only goal in that game. The Sabres beat the Red Wings in overtime. The Devils beat the Capitals in a shootout. And the Oilers beat the Hurricanes in overtime. The Leafs fell to the Blackhawks 3-2. The Rangers defeated the Blue Jackets 2-1. And the Golden Knights beat the Blues 4-1. And the Flyers fell to the Stars 5-1. Couple of fans showed up there at the end of the show, guys. But yeah, that's going to be it for tonight, guys. Thanks so much for coming, Randy, Entertap. Who else do we have? Frank was here. Luciano. Thanks so much. I do appreciate your contributions, being a part of the show. As always, you guys are great contributors. And we'll look forward to seeing you on Monday. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. C'est la fin de l'émission. Si vous avez encore des questions, si vous regardez ou écoutez l'émission, après la conclusion de l'émission, vous pouvez donner vos questions, vos commentaires dans la section de commentaires. Je vais faire mon mieux de répondre à vous. If you have questions, guys, and you're watching in a replay, you can certainly put them in the comment section, and I will do my best to respond either in the comment section or in the next show and do what I can to respond to your questions. But that's going to be it for tonight. I hope that you, thank you, Frank. I see you back over on TikTok now. I timed out or you timed out, Entertap? I hope it's not me. No, I think I'm still going over here. Yeah, that's it for tonight. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening. I know it's Saturday night, but it's also late, depending on how much of a night owl you are. But no, it's we got one more question here. We'll answer this last question and then we'll go. From Fitness King 101, who is a regular on here. Hey, do you think Montreal will be in the playoffs this year and make it to round 2? Which teams are you worried about against Montreal? Who is my favorite player? Holy smokes, lots of questions in there. Welcome. I think you've been here before, Fitness King 101. I don't think you're new. You timed out a couple of clowns. Yes, absolutely. I do think Montreal will be in the playoffs this year. I think they have the team to do it. Again, there's no guarantee of it. H.A.D stands for Habs After Dark, Randy. Yeah, I think. I mean, they're capable of it. Again, I mean, anything can happen. Last year they didn't. They weren't favored to win to make it to the playoffs, and they did. I think if they don't make the playoffs this year, I think it'll be a bit of a disappointment. Obviously, lots of things could happen. I don't know about round 2. I think that would be the next step that they're looking to try and make, is to try and get past the first round of the playoffs. Which teams am I worried about? I'm not really worried about any specific teams. I think there's, the Atlantic Division, I think, is going through a bit of a change right now, where, there's, some of the teams that have been really good for the last number of years are sort of, aging out a little bit and maybe falling back to the pack. And then some of the younger teams are sort of coming up a little bit, the Canadiens, the Senators, even the Red Wings, there's a change going on in that division and in the conference overall. So, my favorite player currently, I don't really have one. I kind of like all of the players. I don't really have one that I would pick. If you're asking me for my favorite players of all time, they would be Guy Lafleur and Mike McPhee are my 2 favorite Canadians of all time. Randy asked me, what does H.A.D stand for? Habs After Dark. That's the name of this show. In French, it's Bleu, Blanc, Rouge, Nuit. Fitness King asking me about my hat. You are a Guardians fan. That's interesting. I'm not a Guardians fan. I just like the hat. I have about 50 hats, a number of them from different MLB teams. I have a few Cubs hats. I have a Dodgers hat. I have a couple Expos hats. I have a Mets hat. I have a Pirates hat. I have a Guardians hat. I have a couple of Atlanta Braves hats. I have about 15 minor league baseball hats. So it's not just a matter. I do also have a Nationals hat. I have a Detroit Tigers hat. So it's not me being a fan of any specific team. And, if I wear a hat, it's not because I'm, a diehard fan of that particular team. It's more so that I like the hat, bought the hat, and like wearing hats. So it's not. I know the Expos went to the Nationals. Do I cheer for the Nationals? No, I don't cheer for the Nationals. I don't really cheer for any MLB team at the moment. I would have cheered for the Nationals for a period of time. I cheered for the Angels for a bit when Vladimir Guerrero and Jose Vidro went there. But I find it hard to cheer for any MLB team with any real passion anymore. So, what's up, Hunter? We're just ending the show, unfortunately. We were just about to end it, and then we had a couple questions here from Fitness King. But again, I'll say one more time, if you're not subscribed yet, please hit the button down below. Subscribe to the channel. Help us grow. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. We'd love for you to be a part of it, so please do so. But that's it for tonight. C'est tout pour ce soir. Merci tout le monde. C'était un autre match où les Canadiens perdent contre les Bruins de Boston. C'est 3-2 pour les Bruins. Another loss for Montreal tonight, guys. 3-2 to the Boston Bruins. Again, we will see how they respond and how they bounce back, if they bounce back. On Monday night against the Columbus Blue Jackets. But that's it for tonight. C'est tout pour ce soir. Merci d'avoir été ici. Thank you very much for having been here, and I hope that you enjoyed the show. And if you did, give us a thumbs up. Donnez-nous un pouce en haut comme ça, un like. Et on va vous voir à la prochaine. We will see you next time. Peace out.
To Hoffman, Monahan parked in front, docks to Caulfield, fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.